The entire restaurant fell silent the moment the elderly woman stood up. Crystal glasses stopped clinking. Forks froze halfway to people's mouths. Even the pianist quietly lowered his hands from the keys. Everyone knew exactly who she was. Margaret Whitmore, the feared mother of billionaire real estate magnate Jonathan Whitmore. Across New York City, her reputation had become almost legendary. She was known for demanding perfection, humiliating employees over the smallest mistakes, and reducing experienced managers to nervous wrecks with nothing more than a disappointed glance. That afternoon, her icy stare settled on a young waitress carrying a tray of soup. The guests expected another public humiliation. Instead, before the afternoon was over, that same waitress would leave the powerful woman completely speechless and remind an entire restaurant that kindness is stronger than wealth, pride, or fear. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still changes lives, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more emotional stories that restore faith in humanity. The restaurant overlooking Central Park was one of Manhattan's most exclusive establishments. Politicians, celebrities, CEOs, and international investors regularly reserved tables months in advance. Every employee understood that a single mistake could cost the restaurant thousands of dollars in reputation. 26-year-old Grace Carter understood that pressure better than anyone. Grace had been working double shifts for nearly 2 years. Every morning, she left her tiny apartment in Queens before sunrise and returned long after dark. Most of her earnings disappeared into hospital bills for her father, Thomas Carter, a retired firefighter whose lungs had been permanently damaged after rescuing children from a warehouse fire years earlier. Life had become an endless cycle of work, hospital visits, overdue rent, and quiet prayers before bedtime. Still, Grace smiled at every customer, not because her job demanded it, because her father had once told her that every stranger carried an invisible burden no one else could see. Those words had become the foundation of her life. The restaurant manager suddenly rushed across the dining room with panic written across his face. Margaret Whitmore had arrived. Within seconds, every employee straightened their uniforms. The kitchen doubled every quality inspection. The manager personally checked every plate leaving the kitchen. Everyone knew Margaret's impossible standards. Some whispered she had forced chefs to resign. Others claimed she once shut down an entire charity gala because the flowers were arranged incorrectly. Whether the stories were true hardly mattered anymore. Fear had become her reputation. Grace noticed the elderly woman sitting alone near the large windows overlooking the park. She looked elegant in a cream-colored suit, wearing a pearl necklace that probably cost more than Grace earned in several years. Yet something else caught Grace's attention. Margaret looked lonely, not sad, not angry, simply alone. Grace quietly served the first course exactly as instructed. No mistakes. No delays. No unnecessary conversation. Everything seemed perfect until another server accidentally brushed against Grace while carrying a tray. A spoon slipped. A few drops of soup landed near Margaret's tablecloth. The entire dining room gasped. The manager's face turned pale. Margaret slowly looked down at the tiny stain before lifting her eyes toward Grace. The silence became unbearable. Everyone expected shouting. Grace gently placed the tray down. Instead of making excuses or blaming her coworker, she calmly accepted responsibility and sincerely apologized. Margaret stood. Her expression remained unreadable. The manager hurried over, already apologizing repeatedly before Grace could say another word. Several guests quietly watched, expecting another employee to lose her job. Margaret stared at Grace for several long seconds. Then she asked one unexpected question. She wanted to know why Grace wasn't trembling like everyone else. Grace answered honestly. She admitted she respected every customer but refused to fear another human being because every person, regardless of wealth or status, deserved dignity, including herself. Those words seemed to strike somewhere deep inside Margaret. Yet her face revealed nothing. She simply sat back down. Lunch continued. The staff breathed again. But the story had only begun. Later that afternoon, Jonathan Whitmore unexpectedly arrived. Tall, confident, and dressed in a tailored navy suit, the billionaire instantly attracted attention. Employees whispered as he embraced his mother before joining her table. Grace quietly continued serving nearby customers. She noticed something curious. Although Jonathan was enormously successful, he constantly sought his mother's approval. Every sentence, every opinion, every decision. Margaret corrected him frequently. She criticized his tie, his business schedule, even the way he ordered coffee. Jonathan smiled politely each time, but Grace recognized the exhaustion hidden behind those smiles. Money had built skyscrapers. It had not healed childhood wounds. As dessert arrived, another unexpected event unfolded. An elderly homeless veteran slowly entered the restaurant lobby. His clothes were worn. His shoes were damaged. He wasn't asking for money. He simply requested a glass of water. Before security could escort him outside, Grace quietly brought him fresh water and a warm bread basket she had purchased with her own employee meal allowance. The manager looked horrified. Several wealthy guests frowned. Margaret watched every second. The veteran thanked Grace with tears in his eyes. Before leaving, he gently removed an old military challenge coin from his pocket and handed it to her. He explained that people had ignored him for years, but she had reminded him that he still mattered. Grace accepted the coin as though it were priceless. Margaret silently observed everything. After the veteran left, Margaret called Grace to the table. The restaurant grew silent once again. She asked why Grace would spend her own money feeding someone who could never repay her. Grace smiled softly. She explained that kindness was never an investment expecting profit. It was simply the right thing to do. She added that her father always believed people remembered compassion far longer than success. Margaret looked away. For the first time that afternoon, something behind her confident expression appeared fragile. The following week, Grace returned to work expecting an ordinary shift. Instead, Jonathan Whitmore requested to speak with her privately. He thanked her for what she had unknowingly done. After leaving the restaurant, Margaret had spoken about Grace all evening. Not with anger, with curiosity. Jonathan confessed something almost no one knew. His mother had grown up in poverty during the 1950s. She worked multiple jobs before eventually helping build the Whitmore family fortune beside her late husband. Success slowly transformed determination into perfectionism. Perfectionism gradually became control. Control eventually isolated her from almost everyone she loved. Jonathan admitted he could not remember the last time someone had spoken honestly to his mother without wanting something from her. Grace had done exactly that. Weeks passed. Margaret quietly returned several times. She always requested Grace's section. The conversations remained brief but gradually became personal. Margaret asked about Thomas. Grace spoke proudly of her father's years as a firefighter. Margaret listened carefully. She asked about Grace's long hours, her dreams, her education. Grace admitted she once wanted to become a nurse, but abandoned college after medical bills consumed her savings. Margaret said very little, but she remembered everything. One rainy evening, Grace arrived at the hospital after another exhausting shift. She found her father smiling wider than she had seen in years. A hospital administrator entered the room carrying unexpected paperwork. An anonymous donor had paid every remaining medical bill. Future rehabilitation treatments had also been approved. Grace stood frozen. No donor name appeared anywhere. Weeks later, she discovered Grace cried in the empty kitchen after her shift ended. Not because of the money, because someone she had believed incapable of compassion had quietly changed another family's future. Margaret continued changing as well. She began greeting employees by name. She thanked dishwashers, complimented cooks, asked busboys about their families. The restaurant staff could hardly believe the transformation. Fear slowly disappeared. Respect replaced it. Months later, the restaurant celebrated its 50th anniversary with a charity dinner benefiting injured firefighters across New York. Business leaders, celebrities, first responders, and community volunteers gathered under sparkling chandeliers. Jonathan invited Grace and Thomas as honored guests. Near the end of the evening, Margaret requested the microphone. The ballroom instantly became silent. Many expected another formal speech praising business success. Instead, Margaret surprised everyone. She admitted she had spent decades believing excellence required fear. She believed authority demanded distance. She believed respect came from perfection. Then she met a waitress who quietly accepted responsibility for a mistake she hadn't caused, treated a homeless veteran with dignity, and reminded a lonely old woman that compassion requires more courage than power ever could. Margaret publicly thanked Grace for changing her life. Not through lectures, not through arguments, simply through consistent kindness. Many guests wiped tears from their eyes. Jonathan embraced his mother without embarrassment for the first time anyone could remember. Thomas proudly looked toward his daughter. Grace realized that ordinary people rarely understood how deeply simple acts could influence another human soul. Sometimes changing the world never required enormous wealth. Sometimes it began with a glass of water, a warm loaf of bread, and the courage to treat everyone with equal respect. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe because every act of kindness deserves to be remembered. Before the story ends, tell us in the comments, what is the kindest thing a stranger has ever done for you? Your story might inspire someone else today. Margaret Whitmore never became a different woman overnight, but she became a better one every single day. The employees who had once feared her now welcomed her with genuine smiles. Jonathan finally found not only the successful mother he had always admired, but also the loving parent he had quietly longed for throughout his life. Thomas recovered enough strength to watch Grace return to nursing school, fulfilling the dream she had sacrificed years earlier. And every time Grace walked through the restaurant doors, she remembered that greatness is never measured by the size of a bank account, the title on a business card, or the influence a family name carries. True greatness is measured by the lives we lift, the dignity we give to strangers, and the courage to choose kindness when the world expects something else. Long after expensive meals are forgotten and fortunes change hands, people will always remember how someone made them feel, and that is the richest legacy anyone can leave behind.